Good afternoon, internets, YouTubes. Hey guys, I haven't done a live in kind of a while. I got a message today from my buddy Steve Fisher talking about some new information on what happened at the Greenwood Mall. And I thought, based on what happened after it, and I'll talk about what it is that happened in a moment, what I'm referring to, I think it's a good time to jump in and just chat about this a little bit. First of all, today is the 22nd of December. So those of you that don't watch this live in the future, 22nd of December, first real day of winter 2022. Yesterday was the solstice. So what I don't want to do with this feed, like oftentimes, is have it just turn into a bunch of random questions. I want to talk about this specific thing. So for those of you that don't remember the Greenwood Mall shooting, I'll give you a little backstory. July 17th, 2022, a mass shooting, i.e. murder, occurred at the Greenwood Park Mall in Greenwood, Indiana, in the United States. The shooting occurred at 5:56 p.m. Eastern Time, and it lasted, very important, less than 1 minute. 3 people were murdered, were killed, and 2 more were injured in the shooting before the perpetrator, a 20-year-old Jonathan Sapperman, I believe is how his name is pronounced, was fatally shot by 22-year-old Elisha Dicken, a legally armed civilian bystander. If you remember this, when this happened, in the space that a lot of us live in, the content that we view, people went nuts. First of all, nothing I'm going to talk about in this short discussion in any way detracts from what Mr. Dicken did. In fact, I don't really want to talk about what he did as much as what people did after this. We're bandwagoners. I will talk about Dicken's actions from what I know, from what I've read, like many of you, and I want to comment on it. But a lot of what happened was, we look at this and we say, this is amazing. What did he do? He had these amazing shots. Let's go practice the Dickens drill, right? Is there anything wrong with that? No, not really. But let's talk a little bit more. So now, after months, again, we said this happened back in July, so this is like 6 months ago, the investigation happened. All my friends that are coppers or friends of mine that work in government will tell you, before making big statements, big choices, big decisions, wait for the facts. Wait a week or two, because it takes that much time to dig up the facts. So check it out. This is not my facts. These are the facts that came out. So Cliff Notes version, my buddy Steve Fisher, Sentinel Concepts, was kind enough to send this to me. Dicken reacts to the shots. So this dude, you can go look at the totality of the whole story. This guy who is a foster kid, he's been in all kinds of trouble. He's a broken toy, as our good friend William April would say, God rest his soul. This kid, at the end of his ropes, his father had thrown him out of the house, thrown him out because he had just quit his job. Just a little backstory. His dad said, it's time for you to be a man, get the frick out, get on your own 2 feet. He's getting evicted because he hasn't been paying the rent at his apartment. And he goes on some internet site and he writes, today's a good day to die. Takes some pictures of him with his guns. He's got a couple ARs. He's got a 357 SIG Glock. I think it's a Glock 33. And he puts his shit in a backpack and he goes to the mall, where he sits in a bathroom for about an hour. Eventually, he decides to enact his crime and he walks out into the space and starts shooting people. Initially, people said that he targeted some Hispanics. What they found out is this kid didn't have his glasses or contacts in. He had very poor vision. So beyond about 15 feet, all he saw was fuzziness. They think he just shot the first 3 people. I will list those people's names to honor them as we get towards the end of this discussion. So he leaves the bathroom, he starts shooting. The whole thing lasted less than a minute. Dickens reacts to the shots. He draws, moves to cover, and fires 2 rounds at 43 yards. 2 rounds at 43 yards. They're both misses. He pauses now because people are running around. So just think about the totality of everything happening here. Noise, scary, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, what the heck's happening. He goes to cover. One bystander said that he rested his arms on top of a large trash can. He got a couple good hits. You ran the Dickens drill. Well, it's not really a drill because as we look here, it didn't happen the way people thought it did. But I'm not impugning this young man. He did an awesome job. So the first 2 rounds, 43 yards, were misses. He pauses because now other shoppers are running around. He waits to get a clear sight picture, fires 2 more. Those connect with bad guy. The bad guy, this monster, attempts to retreat to the bathroom. Dickens maneuvers now, closes about 23 yards. He comes in 20 yards now for a better firing angle. He fires 4 rounds, gets 4 hits. Bad guy continues to attempt to retreat, still holding on to the carbine. Dickens closes the distance now to just under 10 yards, fires 2 more, engagement over, puts the bad guy down. His gun was a stock Glock 19 with the original Glock plastic sights, and those sights were damaged from a motorcycle accident that he had been in. I don't know anything about it other than that. Dickens had no formal training, just dry fire. Says he does some dry fire. This bad guy, by all accounts, you can go read about his history, had all the telltale signs of trouble. Now, the police chief being interviewed, news reporters doing what news reporters are going to do, are saying, like, how can we stop this? Now, go to the 30,000 foot view. Countries like Israel that have huge problems with terrorism and attacks like that have gotten to the point where everything's locked down all the time. And the police chief said, short of having metal detectors everywhere all the time and controlling the flow of people, which if you talk to professional security people, my good friend Todd Fox, who we've done a bunch of videos here for his company, Tour Protection, that does this stuff professionally for the rich and famous, for huge concert venues and things like that, that's exactly what they do. They funnel everybody into security checkpoints. That's all you can do, right? You can't just imagine what people are thinking or doing. The chief goes on to say, though, sometimes, hear this now, hear it, write it on your heart. Sometimes all we can hope for is an Elijah Dicken to be at the right place at the right time. Sometimes all that we can hope for is an Elijah Dicken to be at the right place at the right time. Now, look, in this space, I am the last guy that's interested in living in an echo chamber. I don't want to pat ourselves on the back and say, that's me, or all of us that do that. I don't know that to be the case. This kid, though, acted, I shouldn't say kid, he's a man. I have a son older than him, so I feel like he's a kid. Decisively. There's a saying that comes from a law enforcement training organization. It's Latin. Perseverate in pugna. And what that means is press the fight. Had he taken the time, all of you guys and gals that shoot guns know how easy it is to press a trigger. Immediate action, just like a fire, just like if somebody's drowning. I don't know this person from Adam, Dickens, I'm talking about. But if not him, then who? Who else would have done it? Who else would have done it? You know, we started to talk about caliber, things like that. I just saw that come up. There's so much data that tells us none of it matters. And if we want to go into a circle jerk of a debate on that, look at the data and then debate's over. Of course, bigger's always better, but the facts are, go look at the studies that Claude Werner did, read it, and then talk to me about caliber. I'm not suggesting to any one of us that this is what we should strive to be. But here's the facts. So, and I don't mean just the facts of this particular case of a young madman trying to hurt other people as he leaves this world. We have now reached an impasse in our society. One, we have this flow of information. All these phones and amazing devices allow us just to film and upload stuff instantaneously, pretty much. So it appears that we are much worse off than maybe we once were. I don't believe that myself. I think that we see the evil much quicker. I believe that we are more prone to fixate on it. There's plenty of good in the world. What would happen, though, if we paid attention to those around us? I got 2 points here, maybe 3. Point 1, look at the history of this kid. I'm not making an excuse for him. Look at the history of this kid. He spends his childhood, formative years of his life in and out of the, it's really a, almost a jail system for these youngsters. Doesn't have good parents, in and out of foster homes, things like that. Not a good existence. Talk to any social worker, psychologist that deals with young people like that. It's a recipe for disaster, a recipe. What happens if we pay better attention to the people around us when they're young, when they're impressionable, when they need help and support? That's one end of the equation. That's one end of the equation. But in the immediate, for example, if you have a dog that is biting you, I don't care to have a discussion about the dog should have been raised better. I need to deal with this animal at the moment. Somebody's shooting them all up, killing people, murdering people, as this vile individual did. I also believe in personal responsibility. So regardless of things that have been inflicted upon you, rise above it. Nut up and figure out how to become a better version of yourself in spite of the things that were done to you that you didn't deserve. If you grew up that way, you didn't deserve that. And I'm sorry that maybe that happened to you. But that said, we've got choices. We've got choices. I don't go out in the world every day and think that these things will never happen. In fact, it's the opposite. The police chief, the thumbnail I put up was the police chief. I'm sure he's a wonderful dude. He said, "We never thought this would happen here." Well, the great Colonel Cooper, who without him, I don't worship at his altar by any means, but he was an influential person in this space. Without him, none of us might even be talking about any of this. Colonel Cooper, if you don't know who he is, shame upon you. But Cooper talked throughout all his time at Gunsight and before that, pistol training that he did. Training yourself, a mindset, to say, I've seen this before, whatever it is, in training. I've seen this. I knew this could happen. I'm ready for this. It happened real word counter. Let's see, what does it say? My realistic Dicken drill. What's a realistic Dicken drill? I mean, there is no, that's the point of me talking here. There is no Dicken drill. The way that people thought this thing played out wasn't the way it played out. And in reality, go hang out with any IPSC, USPSA, IDPA shooter that's been shooting in the last 50 freaking years, and you're going to see dudes shooting at 50 yards. You're going to see dudes engaging from cover, from movement. None of this stuff is new, and that's the silly thing. We see one little instance of something happen. We see something that maybe catches our fancy, and we say, that's exciting, right? I was at Arlington National Cemetery the other day. I was very honored to get to go there to help place wreaths on the graves of our fallen veterans that are interred there at Arlington. I've been there numerous times in my life. As a kid, my father introduced me to men, introduced me to them not physically, but to who they were, like Audie Murphy or York or other such men. So one of the things I did while there was go pay Mr. Murphy my respects. If you don't know who Audie Murphy was, look him up. Audie Murphy was one of the most decorated soldiers in the United States history. And at Arlington, he probably could have had a monument that was as tall as any tree there. He's got a small marble headstone like everybody else. Look at what he did in his life. And you could say, well, why don't I get up on the back of a burning tank and run a 50 cal? Why don't I do these various things and train for it? Well, the reality is this singular little thing that happened is a singular little thing. People for 100 or more years, for thousands of years, but in the context of firearms training, have understood accuracy is super important. Being able to assess what's going on around you, super important. Being able to keep your gun up and running, super important. Being able to target discriminate, super important. All of these things are known, but for some reason we see these little things and we fixate on them. Do you guys remember what happened in Arvada, Colorado? I got family that lives in that town. I walked the streets where it happened, but a scumbag decided to start shooting people up, killed a police officer as 911 responders were on their way. A young man was in a camping Army surplus store, saw what was happening, same scenario, burst on the scene, stopped the bad guy. And as responding officers showed up, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They saw a bad man, or a man rather, with a gun, and they shot him. There was no time to have discussions. And unfortunately, when we talk about the realities of violence, the realities of human conflict, the realities of just human beings trying to communicate. What do I mean by communicate? How do I know the guy that's standing here with the gun is the good guy that just stopped the bad guy as I enter the scene? Deciding that you're going to be the person that does this, that presses the fight, you are taking on that mantle of responsibility that anybody else that comes into this space, I'm not only trusting them to deduce that I'm the good guy, but I'm gambling and hoping that they will. That's heavy shit. And I think too often we fixate on these cute drills. So I'm not impugning or I don't know what your drill is. Send me a link. Let me check it out. There's nothing new in any of this. There's nothing new. And there's guys long ago taxing themselves physically doing shooting problems. And then guys say, well, that's not the same as reality. Well, no shit. That's like saying doing CPR on a dummy is not the same as doing it on a person. As such, I won't practice. Well, that's stupid. You have to practice in some way, prepare yourself physically, and then prepare yourself mentally and spiritually, morally, ethically, whatever parameters define you, so that if called upon, you've already made all that. You've made those choices. I practice a little martial arts. If you're training with a gun, I consider that to be a martial art, but I practice some open hand stuff. And it's interesting, guys that'll talk about, well, dude, I just get pissed. I'll just get pissed. I'm just the guy that's going to just explode. Cool. Good story, man. It doesn't mean anything when you've got a person that's trained 200, 300, 400 hours a year, year after year after year, and you're relying on getting angry. Skill trumps will. What I mean by that real skill is going to trump your will just to win. That's like, I can't walk onto a football field. I don't play football. I mean, other than like tossing a ball around in the schoolyard, I'm not a football player. I can't just will myself to be a great football player. I can't will myself to be a great sprinter. I can't will myself to be a freaking ice climber, right? You go develop the skill. You may utilize some will to drag yourself into doing something beyond what you thought you were capable of. But why not prepare yourself long in advance? Long in advance. Why not prepare yourself long in advance? This doesn't just go for a shooting. This doesn't just go for a shooting. Here's the big takeaways here. The big takeaways. Prepare yourself for violence. Prepare yourself for violence. Prepare yourself, but also be empathetic. Understand this is not life. This is us communicating. It's real, but this is not life, right? Life is the cold blizzard going on outside. Life is the people that were shot and killed, right? Life is Dickens, that by all accounts probably has some level of life-altering experience from this, right? There's tertiary issues to think about in all of this. It's not just do the thing and life is good. You train for probabilities, not possibilities. Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, sometimes cute, like, I get your point. I think sometimes we get cute with words. It is entirely possible that my vehicle could slide off the road even though I'm a good driver. As such, I have things in the truck to extricate myself from the ditch if need be. Is it probable? No, not at all. I'm a good driver. I rarely go off the road in the freaking 30 years I've been driving. That said, it is possible. So I don't totally believe that. It is highly improbable that any one of us is going to get shot and need to have a chest seal applied or a tourniquet applied to us. But I bet most of you have one in a trauma kit because it is a possibility. So I think sometimes when we think about this stuff, we have to weigh risks versus what actual exposure there is. Think about this. Something might have a very low probability, but if you screw it up, you could die. I climbed on ladders my whole life as a construction guy. I've never fallen off of one because you do the right thing. Actually, highly probable that it could happen because of the amount of exposure. Highly risky. As such, I put a real lot of energy in making sure the ladder is secure to the wall, etc., however it's supposed to be, secure base, stake down, whatever it is, right? Where do most people fall on ladders and that get injured? If you said 6 foot and under, you'd be correct. Why? Complacency, because they don't put a lot of energy into it because they think it's not very risky, right? Here's the thing. I think these situations illustrate to us something that people like me know, not because I'm special, but because this is what I look at, think about, learn about, train on the daily. There is no magic, right? What there is cause and effect. What there is action and reaction. What there is choice or no choice, right? If the universe, life, the world forces you into a situation where you have to make tough decisions, you would be much better suited had you prepared for that, whatever it might be. A perfect example, when you go buy a new car, do you check, and I don't even need a brand new car, just you get a car that's new to you, even a rental car, do you check where the jack is? the lug wrench. Does the spare tire have and hold air? Something as simple as that. I would rather check that shit out now than when I'm on the side of a road at night with cars flying by me, right? This is all stuff that I think we know about. One of the things that irked me about this is how when this thing happened, and maybe I'm trying to be honest about my feelings. Maybe it's just my annoyance at some of the bullshit in this space. But the amount of bandwagon nonsense, let's go out and run this drill. How about just go train like the hundreds of awesome trainers are out there doing, instead of just doing goofy stuff? And it's not that it's goofy, it's that it's like, if this is what excites you, a situation where people got murdered and now we make a bit of a circus out of it. I want to say their names. Pedro Pineda, 56 years old. His wife, Rosa Mariana Riviera de Pineda. Okay? And Victor Gomez. We're out at the mall having a good time, and some sick little twisted brat decided that murdering innocent people was how he would like to end his time here on earth. These broken toys that walk amongst us, we can't magically make them go away. We've got choices, though, like I said, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist. You either intervene in these young men's life when you have a chance to steer them to the path of righteousness. I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about right, having empathy, right? The shit going on in our home city of Chicago here, where you have hundreds of people killed in gang violence, people just lighting up buildings, blocks, children being shot, little kids in strollers, children in cars. That's only possible because the person behind that gun has no care for human life. Why? We have the choice is to continue to intervene in young people's lives to help create adults that are empathetic towards other humans. And then understand that there are always going to be some broken toys that no matter what you or I do, or people outside of our care, people that we don't have a chance to touch, are going to be that rabid dog that you can't stop. And if not you that intervenes to stop them, who? The way I like to look at it, when I help somebody on the side of the road with a busted car or whatever the situation is where I lend a hand if I choose to, I always think that could be my mom on the side of the road. That could be my sister. That could be my daughter. That could be my whoever, somebody I care about. It's a little bit selfish. Maybe I'm paying into that karmic piggy bank a little bit, right? And if that's the case, who gives a shit? Somebody got helped, and it's a Glock 19. And who cares about that either? Who cares if it was a Glock 19 or a Glock 34 or anything else? I've got freaking miniature pistols that we can bang steel at 100 yards with, and I've got tricked out custom built guns with triggers and compensators and optics on them that you could do the same thing with. Marksmanship matters, right? It's not the gear, it's the marksmanship. Does gear help? Maybe. Put somebody in a Ferrari that doesn't know how to drive anything but a minivan, that Ferrari is not going to help them do anything but die, right? Pay into that piggy bank. I don't care what your motives are. Even if your motives are completely selfish, let's say that the only reason you help anybody is because you only care about making yourself feel better. You still help somebody, right? You still help somebody. It has been well known for all of time, when violence is underway, immediate counter-violence is always the answer. Always the answer. We're talking real violence. I'm not talking about somebody trying to goad you by yelling at you. And somebody is in a mall with a rifle murdering people. The only logical response, the only ethical response, the only morally correct response is to immediately engage in counter violence, not of equal force, but of greater force to suppress, right? If it's equal, it's going to be this little like push-pull. It's got to be a greater, more rapid, more focused, more controlled show of force. Perseverate in pugna, depending on how you pronounce it. Latin. Press the fight. Press the fight. Persevere. Persevere in it. My buddy Jared Reston, who some of you probably know, maybe have trained with, I always quote something he told me once in a training. Jared said, I never would have known had I lost. Jared got shot 7 times by a bad guy, and he killed that guy in one. The first round hit him here and exited out his neck, blew his jaw apart, busted a bunch of teeth out. That's a bad day. A 45 hardball round entered right here, blew out his neck. He killed that guy. But Jared said, I never would have known if I had lost. What he meant is there never would have been a moment. He had predetermined long ago, there never would have been a moment where he said, I quit. It's too hard. What he was saying is I would have fought, and had I lost, the guy would have had to just shut me off. And I wouldn't have known. I just would have went from alive to not alive, right? That's a choice. That is a conscious choice. These situations are going to keep happening. They always have, and they always will. If not a gun, we just saw a very bad one with a blade. People use vehicles. I don't even want to put it into the ether, all of the things available to us. I was just in the hardware store today. Just walked through a hardware store. The amount of things that are available that you could inflict violence on another human with, right? We've got choices. What kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be the kind of person that comments, films a thing, or the kind of person that helps? And I am not just referring to an active shooting, active murdering scenario. We change the world when we begin to change what we put into the world around us. I want to talk again with you guys real soon on some things that we do share on from time to time. And kind of what we talked about here today danced around that a little bit. For the record, I think young Dicken, sounded horrible, is a stud in every way. I think that what he did was heroic, and I would be honored to shake his hand and tell him, good job. To the people that lost their lives or were impacted by what happened in that mall, horrific. My deepest condolences to those that died. I wish you well. If I don't talk to you beforehand, Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad. I do say Merry Christmas because I believe it is Christmas time. If you have a different holiday that you celebrate that. I don't feel the need to tell everybody everything to make everybody feel good. Because if you need that, you're fucked up. And you should check yourself and figure out why it is that you need somebody to change who they are to make you happy. Make yourself happy. The answer always lies within. Always. Press the fight. Think about that beyond a physical fight. You could press the fight in your life, trying to lose some weight, trying to get the girl, trying to get the job, trying to get the sale, trying to freaking get the next belt promotion, trying to win the match, trying to get the job done on time, trying to kick ass at being a dad or a mom or whoever you are. You can continue to press that. I'll end on this. Recently, a guy I know posted something. I guess it was kind of a pre-New Year's resolution. And it was a bunch of very open-ended things. Like, I want to do better. I want to do less of this, more of this. And a couple friends of mine kind of chimed in and were like, Where's something tangible, something specific, right? If I said I want to make more money, I could make one more penny and I'm making more money. But I need to be specific. We need to be specific with ourselves and then hold ourselves accountable. You want to be a marksman that can save the day? Train accordingly. You want to have a level of physical fitness that you will be an asset to yourself and to others? Pick how many days a week you're going to work out, what body fat percentage you want, how much weight you're going to be able to lift, how much cardio endurance you're going to have. Define some metrics. If you just say, I'm going to be more fit, I'll just eat some low-fat shit from time to time, that is unattainable because you have created a goal that is immeasurable, which means it's movable, which means that you can't hold yourself accountable. Everything is inside of you that you need to have. Yeah. Merry Christmas. Hopefully we talk to you sooner than later. I hope this was helpful. Be well. Don't be dickheads. Tell somebody you love them. Bye now. How do I stop this thing? I'm always like,